Hello, guys. Welcome to Data Analytics for Absolute Beginners. How are we doing? Welcome to Havoc's Tech Hub. My name is Owen Gilbert, and I'm your data analyst instructor for the past few weeks, and we're here again because we're sure that we're going to have another lovely time and another interesting time. Okay, so if you're joining us, please, it's our tradition. We take the few initial minutes to share, invite someone, tag someone, share, drop a reaction. So give me a few seconds to let me just share this as well. And I think I would also want to give me a few seconds. Let's share. Share to WhatsApp. We have groups for data analytics class. You can also share, invite someone to join us. Okay, I'm doing just that. Um, yep, we still have some few seconds. Let's just keep sharing, keep sharing. Welcome. You're just joining us. Give us a shout out. Give us a few shout outs. Tell us where you're watching from. How long have you been with us? Hope you've been learning something. I told us we're going to do certain things. Told us we're going to do certain things today, and part of the things that would inform it is that I think we've gotten to that point where we can try our hands on several things. So while there's no pressure, we're going to try our hands on doing one or two things. And we just need to make progress, right? We need to make progress. So use please share to someone, share to someone. I'm still doing that. Don't mind as I bent my neck on. I'm with you. Few more seconds, I'll be good to go. Few more seconds, I'll be absolutely good to go. Okay. I think we're fine now, so we can do something from now. Okay. Are we ready? So last week we did colleges and universities. We used Power Query. You see Power Query of text to column to separate them from a text format to a column format. It was absolutely wonderful. Please, if you're joining us, you're here, drop a like. If you've not followed Havox, make sure you're doing so. If you have any questions so far, reach out. We're getting deeper and deeper into serious business. So last week we did this. We worked on this data, and I promised us that today we are going to step it up a bit. We are going to still do one or two things on Power Query, but like I told us, it's going to be a bit progressive. So We'll still be doing some basic functions, and we'll still be making progress with that. Excuse me. So I promised us we're going to attempt to play around with this data that we have here. We're going to play around with this data that we have here, which is actually a very interesting one. And when I was telling us about it last week, I told us that if one is not careful with data like this, it could actually mess you up. Okay, it could literally mess you up. Okay, so quickly, let's head on to Power Query. Quickly, let's head on to Power Query. And of course, our premium rule is that you are creating a duplicate copy of your sheet, worksheet. Okay. So on my duplicate sheet, I'm heading to Power Query. You know how we go about it. Go to your data tab, go to from table or range, and give it a while to attempt to find your data, and then you can go ahead to, yeah. So it's going to load to Power Query, and we're good to go. All right. So wherever you're joining us from, do give us a like, drop a comment. Um, Tell us what you'll be looking forward to learn on Power Query. And if you've not followed me, also you can follow me on Facebook, ONTA Gilbert, and we'll continue from there. So Power Query, right? I'm going to tell us a thing or two I may not have mentioned in the previous week about Power Query, right? I'm going to highlight the thing or two that we've not done on Power Query, and I'll proceed from there. So first of all, looking at the data, you could see that we are only allowed to see the first 1,000 rows of data. We can only see the first 1,000 rows of data, which means that if our data is more than there are so many things we will not be able to see. All right. So to ensure that what you're seeing is more than 1,000, you can see for all of them the summary statistics, like the profiling. You can see it for more than 1,000. You see this. You may not see it because of the banner that is there, but if you're down at the bottom left corner of your screen, you will see column profiling based on top 1,000. Column profiling based on top 1,000. If you select that, you would see column profiling based on entire data set. Select that, and you'll be good to go. So it will give you summary statistics made based on the entire data set. Okay. All right. So let's go on. Now we can see from our title column that we have blanks. All right. It says there's just one blank out of about 6,000 data points. So you can investigate what that blank is, but then it can only give you 1,000 unique values in your filter menu. So you may not be able to see what that null is. You may not be able to see what that null is. So, but it has the option that you can just quickly remove it just in case that's what you want to deal with. Yeah. All right. Once again, welcome for those that are just joining us. Let's say I really don't need the description column and I want to remove it or delete it. My release here seems to be okay with me. How about in my age certification column? We said we don't want nulls, okay? And I can see a lot of nulls in this particular variable. Okay, so if I really want to be certain, we learned last week, you can go to your view tab You can go to your view tab, and then in column distribution tells you how many are blanks, how many are errors, and so on and so forth. So we have 12 distinct, zero unique, sorry, column quality rather, tells us that we have 55% of this data point is actually valid and the other 45% is blank. Now we want to replace these blanks with unknown. We want to say that this particular age certification was not specified. So let's replace with unspecified. Okay. So you see the replace values option. See the replace values option. We can select it, and then when the window pops up, we'll tell it that we're looking for null values, and and we want to replace with unspecified. Want to replace them with unspecified. Okay. Um, and then since all of them are all caps, let me begin with caps. Okay. So that goes through the list and replaces every blank in that variable with unspecified. All right. How about seasons? Now, part of your dealing with data is that you'd have to investigate something before you just hurry on to just conclude that this or that is what it is. For instance, the reasons why we have nulls in seasons here is if the program is actually a show or a movie. So let's try. Let's filter for when they are movies. Okay. Let's see our data only for when they are movies. If we do that, you would find out that it's completely empty, 100% empty. So which shows that all the values in this particular variable that are nulls only occur because it's a movie. Okay, so null in that sense is not actually an error, but it's revealing something. Let's see on the other hand, if we are looking for true errors, we'll be looking for when they are shows. We'll be looking for when they are shows. So let's see when they are shows. Do we have blanks in our seasons? So let's load. If you're just joining us, the link for this data is available for a comment session 2 weeks ago. But I'll drop it again just for. So you can see we don't have any blank for that. So it means that we're good with that particular variable. We just have to find a way to categorize those nulls. All right, we just have to find a way to categorize those nulls so it's easy to understand. Okay. So we can decide that we want to replace the values of those nulls as, but I wouldn't want that. And the reason why I wouldn't want that is I would love this to still be maintained as a number column. Okay. I still want it to be maintained as a number column. Yes, it's showing us 100% empty, which is a bit of an erroneous, but we understand that it's not empty. Okay. IMDb ID is like the ID column for an IMDb based movie, international movie database, I think so, while TMDB is television movies database, something like that. All right. So maybe we want to focus on only movies that have ID based on this platform. Let's leave those other guys first. Okay. Or if we insist, okay, let's just hide them. Okay. Let's just hide them because basically that's what happens with um, Power Query. It doesn't exactly delete the data because if you come back to your Power Query editor later on, or you go to your previous step, those values still exist. Basically, how it works is that it's actually hiding these guys. Okay. Let's also do the same thing for the others. Let's do for IMDb score as well. Let's just say um let's hide. let's just work with the clean data. Let's work with the clean data. Let's work with the clean data. And remember, with Power Query, all the steps that you take are being recorded for you. Let's do the same thing for TMDB score. Remember, if this data set is not yours, you will be careful with deleting the data points. And since the amount of nulls that I'm removing is not very significant compared to the total value, I'm good to go. Just hiding them. I'm just hiding them. So if new data comes in where there are nulls in any of these variables that I've hidden, okay, it's automatically going to hide them as well. All right. So let's call it our main table. Let's call it our main table. We've removed our blanks. We have somewhat the clean data. If you want to check for duplicates, since this is our primary ID column, this is our primary ID column, our primary key column, right? You can simply go to remove rows, and then you're looking to remove duplicates because we're not expecting a particular primary key column to have duplicates. Now, if you're setting about your primary key column, if you're setting about your primary key column and you want to maintain this process to be an automated process where it will continually clean with new data, I would advise you to add this remove duplicate step, even if there are no duplicates in the current data that you're cleaning. And the reason is because when you have this step in place, even though there is no duplicate in the current data, if a fresh duplicate comes in, it's going to know how it should, handle it, or it should deal with it. All right. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to close this and load, and I would have my main data. But let's try out other things on Power Query. Remember, we're doing this for absolute beginners, so we're just going to assume there are things that we don't know. Okay, we're just going to assume there are things we don't know. All right. So now this is somewhat the clean data that I have, but I want to do something. So I'm heading back to my movie list. All right. So I can go back. I want to open another Power Query sheet now, which is very much possible. I'm opening another Power Query sheet based on that same data. Okay, based on that same data. So I can do two completely different things based on that same data. So it's going to give me, it's going to create another table for me. And you can see my original table, which is main table. And now I have table one, which is this table. All right. So I want to play around a bit, guys. I just want to play around just for a little bit. And let's say I'm interested in this genres variable. I'm interested in this genres variable. So I want to remove other columns except this. Okay. I'm just interested in this. Let's play around. Okay. Now, part of the things I am thinking I would want to do with this variable is you can notice how I have square brackets around and then with quotes, all around them, which makes it difficult to deal with each of these items individually. Okay. And let's open our filter menu. We may not be able to see them here, but yeah, voila, it's here. There are actually certain programs that the genre was not specified. So we just had this. And I wouldn't want that. So that's another thing I'm going to have to deal with to replace those ones that we are not specified with not specified. I don't know if you get. I'm going to do the same thing for my main table, yeah. But let me do that first. So on main table, let's quickly go to that variable. We're going to this variable and want to replace this with um unspecified. So this is actually another this in a form is actually a null value, right? Just that it has quotes around it, right? Unspecified. Okay, let's just add that quickly. Let's add that quickly. Of course, we're not expecting it to reflect here. We're not expecting it that it's going to reflect here. So we still have it here. So we are doing the same thing. I can either choose to do it now or I can do that subsequently. But let me just do that now. Okay. Replace values. I want to replace my empty square bracket just so I'm on the same field, playing field with every other kind of value with unspecified. Okay. So I should no longer have those guys anymore, right? And I want this for the top 1005. How we doing? 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 I hope you have your notes, your notepad, and that you're taking notes, you're learning something. Yep. Okay. All right, guys. So what else can we do here? I can split this column based on a delimiter, and I can also eliminate these extra guys because I don't want them. So I want to eliminate this square brackets. So let's just do a couple of steps. I want to eliminate this and I'm replacing it with nothing. I'm not matching entire cell content, replace using special characters. Not really. That removes the first one. I'm doing same thing to remove the second one. All right. I can also do the same thing to replace the quotes. Okay. This is looking good. I'm not expecting to have anyone that has shouldn't have an issue with this. All right, now I can split column by delimiter, which is going to be comma. See, back where we automatically attempt to detect it, and it's done well here. So I'm splitting into multiple columns. Oh, this looks scary. This looks scary, 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 scary. So if it were on normal Excel, we would now find a way to integrate all of them together to have one list, right? So you can see that in some of them they are virtually almost empty with just about this just has about 24 values in this. So basically, the movie with the highest number of genre is eight, right? Yes, the movie that has the highest number of genres has eight genres of it. Okay, that's all right. So let me highlight all, and I want to on pivot columns. I want to on pivot columns. So when I on pivot columns, what it does is it takes every value and places them, makes their header like an attribute, like a value, attribute value pair. So just let me try to explain it. All right, let me go a step back. So we had documentation under genres one. Okay. Now when I on pivot, it gives me only two columns where documentation will be under values, all right, and the attribute or the header of documentation will be its genre one. Let's see, the next one was drama because there was nothing else on this line. If you can see, documentation was just the only thing, and then the next one we had was drama and crime. So drama is under genre one, crime is under genre two. So if you check after we unpivoted, you have documentation genre one, drama genre one, crime genre two. Okay, so that's what it did for us. But now I'm also noticing something, that there are spaces in some of them, and there are some that are not, don't have those spaces, which will mean that we would have multiple values in our, of course you can see action here, and action already exists here. So I didn't deal with spaces when I replaced values. So maybe I can also add another step here. I want to still replace values. So I want to insert a step. So these are some of the things you can do with Power Query. You can simply go back, insert a step that you missed, and go back to where you are. So here what I missed is space. I want to eliminate all the space. Now there'll be spaces in items like this that have commas. So you see, we didn't deal with those spaces. So inserting that there, and you can see that there are no longer spaces in between. So let's go back to our last step, and you could see that we no longer have the spaces problem, anymore. So I now have a more clean list of the different genres we have. The genre list, the list of genres that we had. Let me format them to capitalize each word. Let me format them to capitalize each word. So this is good. I also want to convert to list. I want to convert it to a list. And the reason is because I want to remove duplicates. And now I have a unique list of my different genres. So I can simply load it back to my table, convert it to a table, or I can load to Excel. So let me call this genre. Let me call this genre. Okay. So let me close and load. Let me close and load. So I now have my main table, which I got from Power Query. And I now have also my list of individual genres. If I wanted to do this using functions in Excel, it would have been crazy. It would have been function in a function in a function. I would have been importing a lot of skills that may you know, drive us crazy. But now I have the unique list of genres from my movie list. So documentation, drama, crime. So I can now be able to do a more summarized analysis and say what are the number of documentation movies we have, what are the number of documentation shows, and so on and so forth, which time permits we are going to do. Okay, we still have about 20 minutes or so. So on your own, you could also repeat what we've done with production countries. They seem to be similar things. So you can try that out. But let's just go on what I want to do. All right. So we are doing some sort of a summary of our data. Why is this step important? Subsequently, probably from next week or 2 weeks from now, we'll be going into Power Query, pivot tables. And in pivot tables, you want to summarize your data in terms of variables like this. But when a table comes in this kind of an instance, is it's just not possible for you to do a table summary on this particular kind of data. Okay, so this is my main table. Now, remember that whatever I want to do now, I would love to do it in context to my main table and not my original movie list. And the reason I would want to stick with that ideology is I have tampered with certain contents that are here that are no longer here. I've deleted some rows that are no longer here. So I'll be working with my. Are we good? Capiche? All right. So I can, for the sake of what I want to do, I may decide that I want to delete the connection of this table to Power Query, but let me be calm first. Okay, let me be calm first. So I just selected only my table because I want to give names to the different ranges. Okay, I want to give name to title, name to movie, name to release year, and so on and so forth. So if I go down, yeah, up till the 5,000 row or thereabout. So I can just go to my formulas, go to my name manager, and create name from selection. And I'm saying that I'm collecting the names from the top rows. I'm collecting the name from the top rows. And I say, okay. If I do go to title and I have title as a name, now I want to do a count, a two counts. Now you can't do this with pivot table because of how our data came. Okay. All right. So I want to do a count of documentation, right? How many times did we actually have documentation? Now, here's the trick. If I say count if, where am I going to look for it? I'm going to look for it in genres. Okay. Count in genres, how many times we have documentation as per this item. Um, I don't really like this option. I don't like working with tables like this, but let's go and see. It tells me zero because there is nowhere it will find documentation alone. Okay, there's nowhere it will find documentation alone. Let me explain what's happening here. Documentation is a word. Want to check in this our main table, right? How many times did, okay, maybe drama now. So if you are counting for drama, we're counting one, where else? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, and so on and so forth. So how many times did each of these genre actually, how many do we have? Right? So just in case it's appearing as though it's because we're using a table, let me type the documentation and documentation. So, oh, sorry, I haven't closed bracket. Thought you would help me to that Excel. There's a problem with your formula. Hold on, what am I doing wrong? I'm trying to tell it to search for documentation, but okay, sorry, Python. Using idea of Python. Okay, so you see that the problem is not with documentation, not at all. Okay, but let me show you something here outside of our table. All right, we want to count, and the reason why it's having that error is because We'll be back shortly. Okay. So I was trying to tell us how we can search for documentation in a list that is, joined like that, how we can pick out documentation. So that's where we were. All right. So what's going to happen here is that we know that documentation has a certain number of characters before it, and documentation has a certain number of characters after it. So we are going to say, using the wildcard tool, that there are a certain number of characters before documentation, concatenated with documentation, and so that's what the and is. And after you have documentation, so documentation will be in quotes. And after you had documentation, we still had a certain number of characters attached to it. Close bracket and then. So let's go by it again. Okay, let's go by it again. We are saying that in genres, which is a list of genres for each program, we want to see how many times did we have documentation in the genre. Okay, how many times did we have documentation in the genre? Now we have genres, which is the range. The criteria is documentation, but we realized that we had a certain number of characters before documentation and a certain number of characters after documentation. So that's what we're doing here. Certain number of characters before documentation, and so the characters are joined to the word documentation, and after documentation we also have a certain number of characters. So that does it for us. So in other words, what we're doing here is, because we are referencing, we are saying we have a certain number of characters before our reference cell, and we also have a certain number of characters after our reference cell. And there it goes for us. It doesn't count for us. So we now know that of all the total shows that we have there, we had 826 programs that had documentation, right? 2,720 were dramas. So I want to change the table design. I could convert to a range. I could convert to a range, but um, let's just let's just leave it at this. I don't want banded rows. I don't want banded rows, first column, header column, filter button. Okay, I'm good. Why am I doing this? I want to add a conditional format based on the value. I want to give a color scale. Oh, okay. Let's just do data bars. Let's do data bars now. So with data bars, it helps us clearly distinct which ones were the highest. Now there is a simple way to do it. So if you have the column highlighted like this, you would see your quick analysis, or you can do that using Control Q. Nice one. So if I select this, I can simply do my data bars, right? But now I'm not having the option to select which particular one that I want. So that's why I'm coming here. Okay. So let's say this is good. All right. Next up, I also want to do, so now I have total count. So let's call this total. How about I want to see movies? How many of them were movies? How many of them were movies? Okay. So I'm doing count ifs, I'm doing count ifs, and the reason I'm doing count ifs is because I have multiple criteria. My first criteria is I'm checking in genre when it is this one that is going to be specified. And my second criteria is I'm checking in the type of program when it is movies. Okay. So let me check. Is it movie or movies? It's movies. Movie. Okay. So I would rename this to movie subsequently. So first thing in count is criteria range, which is what is the first criteria range, and we are checking again in genres. And just like how we had there, we're looking for any number of characters that we are surrounded by this, and had any number of characters after it. These are first criteria. A second criteria is to check in type and to look for when you had movie. When you had movie. Okay. And now, because it's movies, if I change this to movie, it should update. Okay. Let me do the same thing for show. Okay. And all I have to do now is, because the only thing that's going to change here is this, which I referenced. So now it's checking. Okay. This also moved. Total also moved. So, mm, sorry. So I want to be specific here and tell you that no, I'm still dealing with Gen. Okay, so you can see that movie plus show is going to sum up to total, right? So we can see other conditional formats. Yeah, undo calculated can stop. No, just leave it as what we have. Cancel. Let me just use a common. Oh no, it's not related. How much time do we have left? Oh, we have about 14 minutes left. It's just going to be for an hour. So now we know that there are. So these are part of your exploratory data analysis. Subtle ones. Subtle ones. We now know that there are mostly drama movies as well as shows. Okay, and comedy movies as well as shows, but there are also a very good amount of romance movies more than shows. Okay, now these are all. So is there any particular one that the show did better than the movie, that we had more shows? Okay, sci-fi had more shows than movies. Animation had more shows than movies. Reality, obviously, had more shows than movies. And okay, what if I want to see the average duration that each of these guys actually had? Oh, there's something I didn't put an eye on here in my main table. Let's head there quickly. Just remember that. Hope you're having a good time. You're learning something. You're still walking around with Power Query. And I told us that this data set can mess somebody up. That's what I told us last week. That it can mess you up if you're not careful, because it had some kind of aggregation that were not funny. Now, yes, runtime. Runtime. So maybe I'll stop here. If we don't finish on time, I'll continue next week. Runtime is in numbers, and I want it to be in duration. Okay, I want it to be in duration, so I just needed to change this to duration, but I'm having a problem. And the problem is that it's seeing these values in, like, will I say, in hours. It's seeing them in hours, so I need to convert it to a form where to see them in something it can convert to a duration. Okay. So I'm going to insert a step before what I just did, and I want to, let me see, can I actually do that from here? Okay, I can't do that. I have to add a new column. I have to add a new column. What I want to do is I want to divide this particular variable. I want to divide it by the number of minutes times number of seconds. Number of minutes times number of seconds, which should be around 1440. So, right? 14406 24 24 6 24 5 100. Somebody do that for me, please. Let's see. 24 by 6 4 2. Yeah, correct. 1440. So I'm adding a column, a simple custom column, and I'm inserting that step here. Um, and I want to say equal to runtime. So now we are learning also. I'm still thinking if I can do this directly on that column. Okay. Um, a new runtime. So let me delete this. But before I do that, let me move it just closer to it. Yep, insert step. Okay, so I have it beside this. I want to convert this to duration. So just so that, yes, insert step. And just so that we are sure we're doing the right thing. Okay. If you convert 144 minutes, you would have 1 hour 54 minutes, right? You'd have 1 hour 54 minutes. So I can delete this um, column. I can remove this, and then yes, insert step, and then I can rename custom as runtime. I can rename custom as runtime. So okay, let me leave it as it was, as a decimal number. No, don't do that. Just look at where we changed the type. This was a step we changed the type, right? I want to delete that step. And the reason is I'm just trying to be smart, okay? Because in the last step here, I had already converted from decimal to runtime. So I needed this to really be my final step where I converted from decimal to runtime. So the trick here was that although I had introduced a new column that was called custom, I brought it to where runtime was. So I can simply close and load back. So I should have done this earlier. And the reason why I'm now a bit skeptical is that my name manager may have a different value for my from my duration runtime. Let me see what the values are. Okay, so it's updated. Oh, cool. So basically, I wanted to do average duration. I want to do average duration, and it's going to be equal to average if. You want to average if. So what we're averaging is runtime, and the we had them there. So we can let's pick a number format. Time. And meanwhile, guys, we shouldn't in any way feel like these things are too difficult. Some of these things actually took us years, not years, but it took us time to actually master them, okay, to practice them. We had to do a lot of research. So I'm only making it simpler, but at that point, it wasn't as simple as I'm making it look right now. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's what I'm looking for. It wasn't as simple as I'm making it look right now. Back then, it was a hell of a research. Okay, so I now have my durations in my average durations in duration. Okay, and once again, we can add a conditional format to show us which ones were easily, you know, more okay. Finally, before we round up, let's do for one. We're going to continue with this tomorrow. Sorry, next week Tuesday. Let's see the average IMDb score for each of them. Right? Let's see the average IMDb score. So we want to see IMDb average. So again, you're doing average ifs, right? No. Is it ifs? Yeah, if you're doing average if and your range is generous and what you are looking for is this and what you want to average is your IMDb score, which which program type had the average best IMDb rating. Okay, so we want um okay, let's yeah, should we stick with this? All right. They didn't do poorly. All of them were on an average above 5. They didn't do poorly. So let's make do with this. It's the opposite. Yeah, let's make do with this. Okay. So we can see the best were for war, the best ones for history, war, where you had the least ones around horror and all that. Similarly, we can also do for TMDB average, and I'm having a similar formula. So this is just me trying to save time, right? And looking for we're looking for this in TMDB score. Okay, so in TMDB score, let's add a conditional format. Same one, which is this. Right? So you can see the ones that did excellently in both IMDb and TMDB. War stood out. However, animation did well in TMDB's average more than in IMDb. The list was still horror. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we've done quite a lot today, and wow, it's obvious that there's so much that you can do with Microsoft Excel in data analytics, and we are able to make it look as simplified as possible. Some of us may be enjoying now that the colorful part of it is beginning to come out. But trust me, I have something more special for us when we come next week. So already I'm beginning to show us the art of analysis, right? The art of analysis, how you can make your data begin to talk, right? So at this point now, it's obvious that our data is actually saying something which would not have been able to, which would not be which would not be easy to pick out from what we had here in our general table. Are we good? All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be calling it a day point, and I hope to see us next week. I hope you learned something. If you've not liked, like. If you've liked, like again. If you liked, love. If you love, share. If you share, share again. And let me know if you have a question. If you need access to the data, you can do well to send us a DM. And I'll see you exactly the same time next week. Okay? I'll see you exactly here the same time next week. Oh, we did learn something. Yeah. All right, guys. Goodbye.